for it to appear live.
Well, it's live on my end.
So it's showing the video on your end?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder why my phone takes... Okay, here we go.
It's like a 10-second or 5 or 10 second delay usually.
So here we go. Welcome everyone to Discussions in Filmland episode 7. And tonight, well, this late afternoon, early evening, I have two very special guests, Kevin Lambert of the Entertainment Headquarters and DJ Anubis of Metal Tavern Radio. And today we are here to talk about the 25th anniversary of a very good remake, Peter Jackson's King Kong. So, as per usual, first time seeing this movie, we'll start with Kevin.
Oh man, I seen this obviously the year it came out. It came out December 2005, and obviously being a huge fan of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and when I first heard there was going to be another, King Kong remake, I didn't know how, what to think. But then when I heard it was Peter Jackson who was doing it, I immediately got very excited because Peter Jackson, as we know, did an amazing job with Lord of the Rings, and he's also a true fan of the original King Kong film, and he's a true fan of the original material. And I generally feel if there was anybody who was, the perfect person to direct the King Kong remake or his version of King Kong, Peter Jackson was the right man.
Agreed. Yeah. So, Anubis, your first time with this movie?
I didn't see it in theaters. The thing is, like, I've never been the biggest King Kong fan, although I am a fan in some ways, but because of the kaiju and stuff. But I think I may have, like, either caught this on streaming or maybe when it came to a rental or something on DVD or something at the time. It was like 2005, right? Mm-hmm. So, I probably just saw it after it got released on DVD or whatever. And, but I remember really liking it because the thing that I really enjoyed about this was the fact that, and it's kind of like a testament to Jackson's directing, is that he brought like a horror element into this. Even though it's more fantasy and monsters and stuff, but there's like a horror element, not with just the Native Americans or the natives that they were coming across on Skull Island, but the smaller insect creatures that they come across and stuff like that. So, and plus all the dinosaurs and stuff, like it was much more brutal with the prehistoric creatures that Kong was encountering on his travels.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I would say with this, it's got a much more serious tone. It feels more like if you think about the original 1933, the original come out, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So the original 1933 film, basically, it's, if you think about it, it kind of potentially started the interest in kaiju or the interest in big monster films. And, it was soon after 1933. You then had a 1953. You had Beast of 20,000 Fathoms. And then obviously 1954, we had Godzilla, which took things to a whole new level. So technically, technically King Kong was the first kind of major blockbuster monster movie away from like things like, The Time That Land Forgot and things of that nature, because it was something that at that time I don't think had fully been explored. But even though I enjoyed the original film, I feel it's like there's two different tones. Like, I feel like the original, yes, it has serious elements, but it's virtually like just a fun action adventure film, where this one, it's serious in tone. It feels like Peter Jackson took the material very seriously. Like Anubis said, he took the horror elements and really worked on them. And obviously, back in the day, the 1933, there was a particular scene which was the bug pit, which, the kind of scrap from the production where he knew about that. He knew about what they intended with that, and he really brought that to life. And another thing I feel like this film does that the first one tries to do, but this one does it a hell of a lot better, is the emotional side.
Yeah.
Making you feel great sympathy and empathy for King Kong.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is also the one thing I noticed also, because of the mannerisms of Kong. It's very, very much ape-like. When we think about like Planet of the Apes and how they did the apes, and that's how Kong is. Kong is very ape-like in his manners, like he's goofing around when she's dancing in front of him and stuff like that. So I was appreciative that Jackson paid attention to the small details of how Kong would react to certain things.
What was brilliant to how you said this is more of a horror film, and like we talked, the original was more of an adventure. There's a scene where one of the characters steals a book from the New York Library, and the book is The Heart of Darkness, and he thinks it's about a boat adventure, which the original movie was more of an adventure, and you're kind of expecting that here. But when they're going to the island and he's reading through the book, he's talking to his mentor, and he's like, this isn't an adventure story, is it? And it's like, they use that book, which, fun fact, that was the book that Apocalypse Now was loosely based on, but they used that book and his expectation of the book to actually spell it out to the audience before things go wild, that this is not going to be an adventure story. But kicking the movie off, I don't know about you guys, but like, I love the opening montage. Like, this came out 2005. I graduated high school 2004, and like, I loved history class, and like a lot of the great stuff they were showing going on in the Great Depression, like the skyscrapers being built, the Hoovervilles, and all that stuff. It was just like one of my history textbooks come to life.
Yeah, well, that's one thing about Peter Jackson. He's so good with the details. Like you say, this was actually, obviously, the story set during the Great Depression. So obviously that's a part of American history. So he really emphasized that. Like, you've got Anne, you've got Anne, who's literally starving. She's like desperate for work. There's that point where, even I always remember, where she goes and she's that hungry, she's that tempted to steal an apple. And obviously,
you saw like one dude actually pull an apple from the trash can. He was just like a businessman. So that's how tough it was.
And even like the song they play at the beginning, it's a more upbeat sounding song, but when you listen to the lyrics, it's about someone struggling in hard times, and it really just goes along with the images we're seeing, and like some other brilliant touches when it shows them.
A part of me wonders if Snyder took a little bit from this to do the opening to Watchmen. Do you remember that? Like how they did that?
I was gonna mention that, but you beat me to the punch, Anubis.
Another like touch I found brilliant in this, though, in the scene when they're busting up the moonshining operation or whatever it was, there's a scene where you see the cops throw some of the bottles on the ground, and the sound of the bottles shattering is like timed to the beat of the music.
Yes.
Like, there's just a lot of this sequence alone. It's just a master class in good editing and like just setting the tone for the world we're gonna live in, which just, as much all the hardships you see and the struggling it just makes when they get to the island, it feel just that much more brutal. Like, wow, what we saw in the beginning was good times compared. But after the opening, who wants to take up the intro to the characters?
well, the intro to the characters, obviously, after the initial opening, you know, you've got Driscoll, who is like, I have to say, you know, Jack Black. I think this is one of my favorite roles that he does. I think lately he's like sticking to family-friendly movies like the Jumanji, which you could technically say, you know, he kind of is followed from King Kong doing them films. But for me, I also think he's gotten lazy. I think he's just grabbing the cash while he can.
Well, the
But-
funny thing about Black is, you know, he's primarily a comedian,
Mhm.
but one thing I've noticed with this film, as well as another film I like him in called The Holiday, he's been able to kind of incorporate his comedy with some drama, and like that's a good thing. Like that kind of sets you apart from. I think even back in the day, Eddie Murphy tried that with Boomerang, and so I like that Jack is at least trying to get out of that stereotype box that he's in. But like you said, Kevin, he kind of gets trapped because everyone thinks of him as just that comic relief guy.
But why I think
dramatic chops.
Yes. But why I think it works in this film, because he's trying to home it in and be serious, but it's kind of, he's like that cartoony villain, you know, but it works for this character of Carl Deming, who's like, he's this wannabe filmmaker who wants to make a big splash in Hollywood, and he's, you know, he's conned his way to the big time with all these studio executives. And so he basically, you know, he's trying to put this picture together, and you know, they see the worth in the footage, not him as a director, but you know, they're like, you know, we could take the footage he's made of this apparently tropical picture, which was meant to be done on the back lot at the studio, but now he's, you know, making, you know, wants to take them on a boat to some distant location out of the States, and they're like, you know, this is going to be a disaster, this is going to cost us way too much money. So basically what Carl does is he disappears, and at the same time you're then introduced to Anne, and Anne is a struggling actress. You know, you see her really trying to, you know, be a serious actress. She's really looking for that part that's going to like get her to the big time. And, you know, you have that lovely moment where she's like at this down and out studio, like down and out theatre. And you've got that male character, that elderly gentleman who befriends her, and, you know, she takes him for a meal at the end of one shift. And then the next day, when the theatre's getting closed because obviously it's not making a profit, he's going to go back to Chicago. So it means basically probably our only true friend who understands what she wants, he's leaving her.
Yeah.
And this is where she becomes kind of desperate. And she obviously ends up bumping into Denham, who sees something in that, and because he's desperate for an actress, he just looks at her, not because she thinks she's got talent, because she's a size 4 and she's got blonde hair and she's kind of pretty.
Right.
Which, you know, he doesn't look at her for her talent, but he's trying to, like I say, he's a con man, he's a salesman. He's basically trying to, you know, get around her so she'll come on this journey with him. And at the same time as that, she is a big fan of Driscoll, who was played by Adrian Brody, who I thought did a decent job in this film as well. He's not my favourite character in this film, but I think it's one of his, like Jack Black. I think Adrian Brody did kind of a decent job in trying to make Driscoll serious. And, you know, she's a big fan of him, and she ends up going on the boat after, you know, they nearly get captured by the police, where the studio sent them after Denham, and they realise he's at the docks. You meet the crew of the ship that they're going to go on. You're introduced to a handful of the crew members. You meet Andy Serkis's character, who was hilarious, who's like this no-nonsense chef on the ship. you then meet it's Jamie Bell's character, who's like this young steward on the boat, and he's like underneath what's the name of the actor?
Is it Bruce or Kyle Chandler?
Carl Chandler.
He's playing Bruce.
Captain. You've got Captain Eve. Oh, right.
That thought for a minute. Get a couple shout outs where we have Jedi Grand Vale in the audience, Lethal One, and Jake Hall.
Yo, Jake. Hello, Lethal. Jedi.
Jake.
But you've got like, so obviously, and you've got Colin Hanks, who plays obviously Denham's right hand man. But you're introduced to the crew, and Captain, I think is it Longhorn?
Longhorn.
Engelhorn. So Captain Engelhorn, basically, he's just there to take the money. Basically, he knows this is probably a disaster, but he thinks I'll make some money out of it. So they end up going sailing away from the States, but no one actually knows where they're going. All they know is that for somehow Denham has this map that is going to this mysterious island that is meant to be treacherous and forbidden. And then you get that amazing moment with Andy Serkis's character, who tells the story that he heard when he was on another ship. Somebody finding this mysterious island in the fog. And there was a beast on this island that no one had ever seen or heard of, and it changed these people's lives forever.
And speaking of the map, a nice touch with this original extended edition Blu-ray, DVD.
Nice.
Map.
Very nice.
That's not fair. Mine didn't come with a map.
Well, this is the old DVD.
Well, we know you ain't complaining. You get shit all the time.
Yeah, true.
I was telling Neko about all those times you go to the theater and you're always getting those cups and everything. I'm like, dude, they never have that shit when I go to the theaters.
I theater don't either.
It's like, what the fuck? Is the English special in some way or what?
We're getting one of these at J-Fest.
Well, that's good because I can't get it here.
Well, good job you've got your boy from the UK that can get you some shit.
Yeah, the whole, I thought like the whole voyage, even if I feel it does go on a little too long for its own good, the whole thing was brilliant because it gives you just enough time to get to know enough about each of these characters to know what they're like. Like you can tell Engelhorn really doesn't like Carl Denham, but it's like he knows he can make money off of him, so he's puts up with him. You have Hayes, who like is the real leader, and you can tell he like don't trust Denham, and he's actually keeping an eye on him. That just there's a lot of just great subtle stuff, and I think it's one of
I like how when it comes to the character of Hayes, who's played by Evan Park, I like the relationship between Ben, but from Hayes and Jimmy, because they're kind of like, Hayes is like looking after Jimmy. Jimmy's like the young steward. Hayes is like a veteran naval, naval person. He's been on ships his whole life. He's protecting him. He says, I wouldn't say like a son type figure, but like he just sees this young person who he feels he's got to protect.
Characterization is easily one of Peter Jackson's strongest suits as a filmmaker. Like he just knows how to tell you everything you need to know about a character without over explaining it.
Yes. Oh, and then we forgot Kyle Chandler's character, Bruce Baxter.
I love him.
So Bruce Baxter, he, as you know, he thinks he's like an A-list star. He starred in probably a handful of movies in Hollywood, but he hasn't really had that breakout role. But he thinks he's like A-list already. So obviously he gets probably, conned into going on this adventure along with Anne Darrow. And obviously they're going to be the two leads in this film. And obviously Kyle Chandler, who we know who plays this character, he later on would continuously, affiliation with the kaiju and monsters in Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019.
I wonder what he would have said if you were to tell him during the filming of this movie, in a few years from now, you're going to be on screen with Godzilla.
I generally think what happened is he's seen the success of King Kong and he just seen Godzilla and seen it had like a similar feel and feel to King Kong.
Maybe he just likes monster movies because he did GVK too. So like it's not like he just stopped there; he kept going.
Well, I generally feel that when them signed up for 2019 King of the, I think they were saying if we do another one, you're contracted to be in it.
Here's a fun fact from Walter. Composer John Shore was supposed to compose the film, but sadly him and Jackson had a falling out, so James Newton was brought in to do the music.
And I have to be honest, I would have been interesting to see what Howard Shore would have done with the score. But I absolutely love the music in this film. I think James Newton did a fantastic job. I love every scene with Kong and Anne, and it's like that gentle kind of piano kind of theme, and it just puts you in the feels.
That music really defined the dynamic between them.
Yes. And it just like you say, it just sinks you into the scenes and into the chemistry and the relationship between this woman and this animal. And it's like anything. It's like you have a pet, Anubis has pet. We'll love with cats. We'll love with dogs. We'll love any kind of pet. And there's always like this huge relationship between man and animal, and that's going on for centuries. And what Peter Jackson was able to do, was really just literally hit you in the feels. And I think that's partly the beauty of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, like it was one of those things too, like it didn't take long. Like I saw this in the theater myself. A friend actually got me the ticket and we went to see it, and like it didn't take long to like hit me that like, okay, this is going to be a lot more emotional than the original and then the remake from the 70s.
Yeah, well, I could be honest, I watched the first Kong. Yes, you have sympathy with what happens to Kong, but it didn't hit me emotionally. I watched the one in the 70s. That hit me. I felt sympathy, but that didn't hit me more. What happens in this one, I'm not going to lie, I freaking had tears in my eyes in the theater. But there's one clip at the end that I don't like, which I don't think they should have shown. I know we're not there yet, but it's right at the end where Anne's holding his finger and you see him slowly drift away and you know he's died. And he starts to lose grip and he falls back and you see like his head fall like that. The next shot you see is his body just dropping down to the ground, like falling through the sky. I don't think they should have shown that. I think we knew what had happened. I think they should have left that out and just the next scene should have been his body on the floor. For me, I always have to turn away knowing that I'm going to see him falling. And that's because the way that they did this creature, the special effects, the way, like you say, he feels like a real gorilla. He feels like a real animal because he did it in such a realistic, amazing, emotional way, I was emotionally attached.
Mhm.
And so when that scene happens, I have to turn away. And I did. And I forgot about it because I haven't seen this film for so long. Like I say, I bought the Ultimate Edition because I haven't seen the extra scenes. So I totally forgot about that scene. And so when it happened, it took us way back to the theatre. So I had that same emotional like feelings and experience, the same I had from 20 years ago.
Yeah, this film just really does something special with just the emotional weight of it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, after the intro, all that, we get to the point where they're just now getting a telegram that there's a warrant out for Carl Denham's arrest, and Anglehorn's getting ready to turn the boat around, but they've come on the Skull Island threshold, and the ship gets stranded, just stuck on some rocks. And like, even this scene, it just does such a great job filling you with dread for when you get to the island, because it's like, if it's this dangerous just to get close to this island, what's it going to be like when they get on the island? Which Carl Denham, he sneaks off some of the film crew and Anne to the island, and they come across some, like, what they think are just abandoned villages, and you do see some signs like there are fish that look pretty fresh, and we get our first look at this take on the Skull Island visitors. And this time we'll start with Anubis. What were your thought on the villagers in this one?
Terrifying. Like
Mm-hmm.
the minute, like I remember when Neko and I were watching this, the minute you see their eyes, you just know this isn't the same ones we see from like the 33 or the 76 version. And then when, of course, when they start doing the darts, I'm like, oh shit's going down. This is getting pretty primal and evil at this point. Again, Jackson, who is a very good storyteller, like in this, like he makes those horror elements that he brought from stuff like Bad Taste and all that into this, and even from Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. So I just really enjoyed that he took a different take with it instead of just making them like dumb, easy, frightful, villagers and stuff, and he made them actually a worthy adversary to the humans that were invading their territory. Like they could hold their own with their own combat and stuff. So they were just, even from the kid all the way up to the adults, was just like terrifying all the way around.
Welcome, Tony.
What's up, Tony?
Yo.
Kevin, what were your thought on the villagers?
Very much similar to Anubis. It's like you say, Peter Jackson's, detailing of how, he made these villagers look, how they felt very like, they felt like, a native Iwi tribe, similar to like the ones on Kong Skull Island, but these ones are a lot more darker, a lot more frightening looking. There was just, even when they went into the village, just the detailing on like the huts or the fire pits, or the wall, the details on the walls, the carvings, the skulls all around. Just great detail. And Peter Jackson knew what he was doing. He needed to bring, you hear on the boat from you hear on the boat from the chef, played by Andy Serkis, how apparently this island was a dark place to be. It was a forbidden place. It was, once you're there, you'll never forget it if you escape or if you survive. And he literally, Peter Jackson, brought that image to life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree. These villagers, you could have done a straight terrifying horror movie just about these villagers without any of the other creatures on the island.
That's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I remember, like, there was some kid in the theater who actually, when they revealed the villagers, started crying.
Mm.
Oh, I bet. Because yeah, and if you weren't prepared, because if you had seen any previous Kong film, they weren't quite as terrifying as this. This one has like a lot of crazy shit that goes on in it.
Mhm.
So bringing your kid into this film, oh, be ready.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now we got Ulvin in the chat.
What's up, all
Yo.
that?
So then we also see real quick just how brutal these villagers are, and they just remorselessly kill one of the villagers, and they go to kill everyone else as well as we get our first tease at when Anne screams and we hear the roar. And
Oh yeah.
they're finally saved by Anglehorn when he shoots one of the villagers.
Yeah.
And another fun fact, the little girl seen on the island is Peter Jackson's daughter.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, that's
Huh.
cool.
And I do know. In The Hobbit, no, not The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, I think, because Peter Jackson, I think, makes cameos in all of his films, just about. I know in The Lord of the Rings, when it came to Sean Astin, I know his two kids played children hobbits. You know the scene at the end of The Hobbit. No, the end. I keep saying The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings, where you see Sam and he marries the girl who's the barmaid in the tavern.
Yeah.
And the next thing you see, they're getting married and they've got two kids.
Mhm.
Them two kids are actually Sean Astin's kids.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
Peter Jackson, I'm sure, I don't know how, he's got two kids, I think, Peter Jackson. I'm sure one of his kids appears as a child in one of the Lord of the Rings as well.
I believe it.
This is when we get to the ship, though, we do get to see like our first look, and we don't quite realize it yet at how sleazy this version of Carl Denham is, because the guy that died, he's why we need to finish this film so we can give the proceeds to his family. And
Yeah.
you're gonna hear more and more. And even though I'm not the biggest Jack Black guy, this is why I do like him in the more dramatic roles, especially in this one, because scenes like this, you get to see he gets to use a little bit of his comedic chops to just accentuate just how sleazy this version of Carl Denham really is. But he
has a way of like his mannerism of his face. So like there's a moment where I didn't get to watch this over entirely like I wanted to. I got a few clips of it, but so when Driscoll is like writing the script inside his cage in the ship, and they're talking, and Denham's sitting there, and he's like, they start talking about like this is when they reveal the island, and so you see this like look on Jack's face where it's like this mischievous, like I don't want to say evil, but just very deceptive look that he does. It's sort of like comedy, but yet not comedy, and I think that's sort of what you're talking about, Anthony, because like he just has a way of portraying this character that's just very sleazy but yet funny at the same time.
Which like it understates how really sleazy he is, and it's only when you see the movie as its whole and it just hits you that this guy's a complete slime ball.
He's just a wannabe salesman. He's trying to be like a major film director in respect, but deep down, he's just a no good car salesman.
Yeah, like you expect to see him running a business called Honest Jack's Used Cars.
Yeah, very much. I agree.
When they're on the boat, Anne gets taken. Which, one thing to this credit, at least this time she's in her cabin and not on the deck of the actual boat. So it did take some more. And even how they got to the boat with the pole vaulting, I thought was like a really nice touch. But Anubis, I'll let you take it from the sacrifice and when they get into the island.
Well, I'll try to remember as much as I can. So obviously, yeah, they kidnap her and they get her into the island, and it kind of follows a similar format of the other films as well. But you know, they tie her up, and I guess really, I don't know, I can't remember too much from the specifics, but I'm just guessing that again, Kong is coming to get her, and you know, terrified as she is on the sacrificial altar and stuff like that. And then the guys that come to try to save her, Brody's character, and them just can't get to her in time for that. But again, the attention to detail that Jackson has with the gate and the wall, which actually is a lot more menacing than even the walls that we see in previous films. It kind of reminded me a little bit of his work with Lord of the Rings stuff, with all the you know, Mordor and shit like that. So
it felt, in some ways, it did feel like a primitive version of the walls around Mordor.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about these particular scenes is obviously when they realize Anne's been taken and she's now going to be sacrificed to the beast of the island, which, as we know, becomes King Kong. The attention to detail, like the cinematography during this scene, is fantastic. Like, you can tell he used, you know, when he's in the caves of Moria and the Balrog turns up, and you've got the characters from Lord of the Rings that kind of running around the staircase trying to escape, and that was all done.
I was just gonna say, I'm trying to remember. So on the wall in this film, because they had the spikes or the wood spikes out. I can't remember. Did they have like skeletons of dinosaurs on there? I can't remember because I thought they had
like. I think they had like some human bones on there.
Yeah, there was something going on there. I just remember it because it was, again, more of the horror aspect of everything.
Yeah, like, but them particular scenes where they go to sacrifice her, and just the shape of the island, and along with the special effects, it does feel like he's using the same kind of filmmaking that he did with Lord of the Rings, where you would have had a mixture of just solo special effects, blue screen, and obviously part of the war, and that there would have been miniatures or giant-as or whatever they're called, where they're like, you know, like giant made-up cities, and they would have filmed it all together. And I think, because he did it that way and he used the same technique, it's very effective. And also telling like this particular scene, it's quite terrifying with the villagers and your first introduction to Kong and the crew definitely, you know, desperately trying to save Anne.
Yeah, and even like the introduction of like Kong, like it's like you almost dread actually getting to see him because you're like, what's this Kong actually going to be capable of? And there are some like nice touches too. Like in this one, I feel like the characterization of Anne, they did make her just a lot smarter and more resourceful of a character, because there's a point where Kong's holding her and he's like waving her around and she takes that bone sacrificial necklace and she stabs him in the finger, and it just like tells us up front that this Anne is going to be more of a fighter.
It makes me wonder if that's why she stood out to Kong and why he didn't just basically eat her. Because think about it though, no one ever asked this question. They've got a sacrificial, you know, altar. So she's not the first person that's clearly been sacrificed to Kong.
And you see all the skeletons in this scene of the other sacrifices killed.
Clearly, all of the people that's ever been sacrificed previously, they've just been villagers or somebody who's committed a crime, and they're like, right, in the village, right, we're going to sacrifice you to our god Kong. And they probably, because they, you know, they are kind of like the, you know, the Iwis, they're not as advanced. So they would have panicked and would have just tried to fight and claw, where she's quite, yes, she's screaming, yes, she's frightened, but she also kind of keeps herself to herself because she also is trying to like figure a way to get away from Kong. And like you said, she uses her smart. And probably Kong himself, being an animal, is curious about her because he's probably never met anybody like her because she's not like anything else he's experienced. So all the tribal people have the same skin color, the same hairstyle, wear the same clothes. She's whiter skinned. She's got blonde hair. She's in a lovely gown. He's never seen that before.
And
So
No,
she,
and I think also, like, I'm sure the natives react differently. So the girls are their sacrifices to Kong. They don't have any quote unquote self worth, like, she would because she's from a civilized nation. So,
yeah,
like you said, her behavior is way different than the ones that he's normally coming across for sacrifices. So,
yeah. And it's like any animal when they're out of the element of they're put in a room with a toy that they've never seen. The instant that an animal will do, it's out of curiosity. It'll go and it'll play with it, or it'll tap it, or it'll sniff it. That's just the nature of animals themselves, animal behavior.
here we got a correction from Walter. Jackson's daughter is in the film, but the island girl was played by however you pronounce that.
Jacinta Wadi. Okay. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, and again, I do again like what you said with the whole interaction with Anne. It just goes to show like how good Peter Jackson is at writing and how he is at characterization. Even Kyle Chandler's character, there's the scene where, and it comes into play later, but where Jack Driscoll tells him, he's like, I always knew you weren't like the tough guy you played on screen, but I didn't have you pegged for a coward.
Yeah. And also with Carl Denham, you see even more the sleazebag in him, because he convinces everybody to continue filming after there's been deaths, and he tries to trick people by saying, listen, it's terrible, but I'm going to make it right for the families. I'm going to donate the profits of this movie to the families, which if everything went well and he made the film, he wouldn't have donated the profits. He would have forgot about the and just would have took the money and ran. So they even do a great job with Jack Black in portraying like just how much of a bad guy he is.
And one of the standout scenes in this is we have a brontosaurus stampede caused by the raptors in this film. And this was, again, it was just another great point where it accentuated the horror of the film, because to go back to what Kevin just said, we see the cameraman, he actually gets grabbed by the leg and pulled away by one of these, and all Carl Denham cares about is the camera, and he gets the same thing. Well, he died, but he died for what he believed in. That's why we're going to finish this film, and I'm going to donate the proceeds to his family. Never mind the guy that died previously now.
Well, the only thing I didn't really like about this, and it kind of affected me with the Tyrannosaurus stuff, was just too much of it. Like, you had all these brontosauruses running down this alleyway, and it's like, I'm not sure if I believe this the way that it's happening. I didn't mind the Euroraptors and stuff like that were, trying to hunt them down and stuff, but I wish there would have been like a more like centralized area where they were just trying to get away and like maybe dodging the brontosaurus tails and stuff while the raptors were trying to feed. But I thought that was a little bit ridiculous with that part of it. But the same thing with the Tyrannosaurus is where we had at least a couple there that Kong was fighting, but then it turns out we have like 6 or 7 of them out there. I'm like, I don't believe that much either.
It was just 3 of them.
The one thing I will say is there's 30 minutes of cut footage, and I can understand why they cut it, because the film is, as it stands, just a regular version, a long film. But I actually have never seen the Ultimate Edition, so I watched it, and I can clearly tell you it actually helps the film better, I think, with the extra scenes. So the scene where they cross the wall to go after Anne initially, they're like, when they first get across to start looking around like the forestry area, and you hear rustling, and that's when they actually first are introduced to another animal, which is a triceratops. And it starts smashing through logs and attacking them. And Andy Serkis' character has a gun and he blasts it with the gun and it dies. And then people are like, I thought those were extinct. And he's like, it is now.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a fun one, but it's your first introduction of something beyond the wall outside of Kong.
And there was also the raft scene.
And there's the raft scene where they're crossing the river, and there's like all these bug things start climbing. They're like these crab, like crustacean things start to climb on the rocks. Yeah, and it's absolutely
terrifying. More terrifying than the other shit.
They get attacked by like this giant piranha type thing.
Yeah, the thing that attacks them, like later on after them, it reminds me like of a giant version of, like, if you've not seen it, the Meg 2. You've got like them lizard crocodile things that go on the land that remind me of them without the seal at the back.
Yeah.
There's also another nice like extended scene that comes later. I think this scene especially, it would have made for a great moment in the theater, because we have a footage of Anne running, and we have the crew of the Venture trying to find her, and they hear rustling through the brush, and someone overreacts and shoots it, and it leads us to believe that there's a moment where, oh no, did he just shoot Anne? But it was this bird thing running through the brush. It was just like a nice little
you thought he shot her because she was running, and it was this bird thing, and it made you think, oh shit.
Yeah.
Ulvin's got a question on the. So I'm just gonna put this up. So Ulvin, to answer your question, the Ultimate Edition has the theatrical cut and the extended cut. So the extended cut has the extra 13-minute deleted footage. So if you want to see the extra scenes that were cutted, this is the one to buy, the Ultimate Edition.
You know, this film, I think it really needs a black and white cut.
I'm surprised they haven't done that.
Because like when I watch it, I actually like to set it on my TV to set my TV to black and white. And granted, it's still not perfect because you're not going to have it properly color time for black and white. But I think it's just a more beautiful looking film in black and white. And even I love how Skull Island looks in this film, because it feels very much like an updated version of Skull Island from the original.
Yeah.
Eventually, we get to the log scene where, sadly, Mr. Hayes dies, and this is a tragic scene because, like, not only do you really like that character, but it's too, he's the one looking out for Jimmy, so you're like, when Jimmy dies, like, when he dies, who's Jimmy gotta have? But like, you gotta respect Hayes. He knows he's dead, and there's nothing he can do about it. So he pulls his pistol out, and he's gonna at least go out fighting. Then Kong just throws him across and kills him.
And then you have that isn't his scene extended in the ant pit, in the bug pit?
I think it is. I haven't seen the theatrical in so long.
Because obviously after that happens, where they find Kong and he attacks them, and some of them get knocked down into the bug pit, and they're fighting, and that's when Andy Serkis gets his head basically sucked in and chewed, and you have Carl Denham finally, you see like tears in his eyes, and I think he generally feels his time is up. He starts helping them fight back. And obviously, this is where you also got like this is where is it Thingy Horn, Eagle Horn, the captain, they get saved by the remainder of the crew. But there's that scene where Jimmy, after they get in, can we just say the entire bug pit scene is terrifying.
Oh, this like I in the theater, like this scene had my skin crawling.
Like, I generally feel Peter Jackson wanted to make this film just for this scene, because he literally read about the making of the original Kong, and he had seen the original props. There was actually, I think, shot footage, or there was like snippets of footage shot that you can think. I think you can look it up and find it. And I think he deliberately was like, in his mind, why was that not added? It would have been terrifying. So he's like, well, since he hasn't edited it, since they didn't edit it and put it in the original Kong, I'm going to do it.
And while they were doing this, they also did a actual stop motion hypothetical recreation of what the scene could look like in the DVD that came out around the time this did. There's a whole special feature with their recreation of that scene on there.
Well, I think it's just more of a credit to Jackson's attention to detail, because you're thinking about a time of a land lost, like what Kevin mentioned, like some of the older movies, like the World Dead Time Forgotten stuff. You don't think about some of the more minor things, which again, when we get a little bit later, when Naomi Harris's character, or Naomi Watts, excuse me, is in that log and she's hiding. And I'm thinking, oh, well, she's safe. But technically, she's got all these fucking creatures crawling all over.
That giant centipede. Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude.
I'd rather take my chances with Kong than the centipede.
You're right, exactly. And so that's why I like that Jackson didn't make anything safe at all.
Yeah, let's face it. The Skull Island in Peter Jackson's King Kong is terrifying, where the Skull Island in Kong Skull Island is fucking tame compared to this.
Very.
Yeah, that Kong Skull Island, it just has a few, just like a handful of nasty creatures. This,
like you have a giant fucking water buffalo in Kong Skull Island, where they should have made it like a giant crocodile or something that attacked them.
Right.
They should have had. There's only one scene that I was truly shocked in with Kong Skull Island, and that's when they were walking through the high grass, and the mother Longlegs put its leg through his face, and I was like, shit. Apart from that, no.
Even how they introduced the V-Rexes in this movie, I love, because she gets chased by this one creature and runs into another log, and it gets killed, and you think it's Kong, only for her to encounter one of the Rexes, and he really ups the ante because he has to fight 3 of them at once in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
before we get on to that bit, I just want to mention one more. Like in the bug pit with the creatures, going back to the extended cut, like you said, he has made the sacrifice. There's that scene where Jimmy, and I don't know if this scene was in the theatrical cut, but he finds his body after, because you just see him get hit and he falls into the pit.
Yeah, he takes the hat.
And he walks over to him and he sees his body and he takes his hat, and that music comes on and it's like, shit.
And another nice touch with that is Lumpy Andy Serkis's character. The fact that he died because he wasn't going to abandon a friend's body.
Yeah.
Like, even that scene, like, it really does hit you in the field, because it's like, get out of there, but he died because he wouldn't leave a man behind, alive or dead.
Yeah, and then, like you see, Anne's left to her own devices trying to get away from Kong, and like you see, she bumps into this lizard thing, like a giant lizard, and then she's in the log, the centipede crawls all, and you're like, Jesus, what? the creature basically starts chewing through the log, and then something grabs it from behind, and like you said, you think it's Kong. She then rolls over, and you think she's safe, and then you slowly, and this is one thing I love about this scene, it's the camera angles.
Yeah.
How he turns the camera, and she's lying on the edge of like the cliffside or the hillside, and then you just see like a ridged, what you think's the end of the cliff, but as it pans out, it's the jaw or the snout of this giant fucking T-Rex, V-Rex,
that shot was brilliant.
and then it looks up, and she's not noticing a thing, and it spots her, and then you can see it plan just to like chew through her, and then she finally sees it, and it all hell breaks loose. It's one of the best introductions to a dinosaur creature in a film for me in a long time, up to this point, since the T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. A nice touch I like too about this design is it's a hybrid. It's a cross between modern dinosaur design and the vintage dinosaur design.
Mm-hmm.
So they like really did work to come up with a unique and honestly terrifying looking take on the creature.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they upped it to Kong fighting, even though I don't have the picture with all three of them at once, him fighting three at once, it just really upped the stakes of the movie. And like this scene, I remember like watching it at the theater, jaw dropped, just taking this in, and all, not just the size of the screen, the spectacle. And it was this scene for me was like the scene stealer in the movie.
Like even like how he fights them, he's so clever. Like he uses his feet, like his feet are like hands. Like there's the way Anne's getting tossed around, and there's a bit where she falls. Just he catches her by his foot at one point. There's a bit where they're hanging like on these giant vines, and you think, oh, everything's fine, and then Anne's like floating.
Now,
and then you look across,
or the T-Rexes, and they're like still snapping at her. They're swinging around.
Where she's even like holding on to one of the teeth.
Yeah. And it's like just movie magic at its finest. And Peter Jackson, like as much as I love the Lord of the Rings, and I do, can never. They're some of me. It's one of my favorite trilogy. This film is one of, I think, in many ways, particularly these scenes with the T-Rex, is some of his best work, because he was so passionate about this film since he was a kid. And I'm sure I heard on a stream that even, is it Bad Taste, the film he did? Is it Bad Taste? It's the one with the zombies.
Yeah, from way back. Yeah.
Like the mother in that movie. No, it's not. It's Brain Dead.
Oh, Brain Dead. Yeah.
So in the film Brain Dead, this is how much I know he loves King Kong, is when his mother, who's a complete control freak, gets bitten by this thing in the cage. If you look at the writing on the cage, the creature that bites her is from Skull Island. So even back before he even got the chance to make King Kong, he was thinking about it even back then when he was making these low budget horror comedy films.
I think even as a kid, like he actually created like his own Kong stop motion puppet and did actually film some footage with that. So like Kong has been something that he clearly never thought in a million years he would get to make, but it's something that he's been sitting on, and he was actually supposed to make one in the 90s around the time Godzilla and Mighty Joe Young came out, but that got canceled. And if I'm being honest, especially with some of the stuff I heard about the film, like the tone being more like the Brendan Fraser Mummy and just how poorly that era CGI has aged, I'm glad that film got canceled and he didn't get to make Kong till after Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like at the end of the day, Lord of the Rings, once that came out and became a global phenomenon, it opened the door where anyone will just say yes to them. So if you notice, his childhood dream was to always make King Kong. He's done it, and I think since then, he's done the Hobbit films. But since The Hobbit, he hasn't, I don't think, actually directed anything else since The Hobbits, because I think he's more involved in the behind the scenes, like with his own production company and Weta Workshop. He does a lot of special effects. Like, I do know Weta Workshop worked partly on Godzilla, Kong, the New Empire. They did some of the effects for that. So
Yeah.
I think he's more or less likes to work behind the scenes more than like directing now.
And since you mentioned that, it probably does explain why, like, the CG in New Empire did feel like, not that the CG in Godzilla versus Kong was bad, but like it just felt like there was more attention to detail in New Empire.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think the last major film he was attached to, but he wasn't director but exclusive producer, was Mortal Engines, which didn't fare well. But I think Weta Workshop did all the special effects for that particular film.
I kind of feel maybe he feels like he's done everything he ever dreamt of doing as a director. So like, there's no point in going on. It's a lesson that if only certain people, like, I don't know, James Cameron would learn.
Like, he had a childhood dream of doing King Kong. He was also a fan of the Lord of the Rings. He got to a point in his career where he was getting noticed, and someone took a gamble on him, and Lord of the Rings was hugely successful. And then, of course, because of that, it opened the door for him to do King Kong. So he's done his 2 passion projects. And so, if you can, like, if I was I remember seeing Godzilla 1954. If I was a film director, before there was a MonsterVerse and all that, and I had a bit success, and then I got to a point where I did one particular film that just blew up, and every studio was hiring money in my way, and they say, right, what's the next big project? You can have as much money as you want. What kind of film would you like to do next? The first thing I'm going to say, I want to make a Godzilla film, because it's my passion. And I feel as if that's the luck with Peter Jackson. He's managed to be in a place in a where he's been able to do that.
I even think I remember seeing an interview like when Return of the King came out, and he was like asked, "Are you going to do The Hobbit next or something like that?" And he was like, "No, I want to do King Kong."
Yeah. And do you know this? He wasn't the original chosen director for The Hobbit. It was Guillermo del Toro. And Guillermo del Toro was attached to the original Hobbits because the original idea was to make 2 movies. The Hobbit, The Incredible Journey, and then the sequel was going to be called The Hobbit There and Back Again. But then Guillermo del Toro left the project. They brought in Peter Jackson, and that's when it became a trilogy.
Yeah, I'm certain too. A lot of that too was like, as not just as much him, but just like the studio wanted to milk it to be a trilogy, and like you could, because the first one, it incorporated so much of the book, and then part 2 and 3 added so much filler. And why I like those films, I'm like, it probably should have been 2 films, and it would have been a lot better.
Yeah, well, if Guillermo del Toro had been attached to The Hobbit, it would have been 2 3-hour-long films, and the first one was just going to be called Hobbit: The Incredible Journey, and then the second one was going to be called The Hobbit There and Back Again. But when he left the project, they brought in Peter Jackson because I think New Line were like, no, we don't want 2 films, we want another trilogy. And I guess Del Toro said no, but then they brought in Jackson. And if you look at the credits at some point, Guillermo del Toro is attached to the film still. I don't know if he was attached as a writer, a producer. His name is still a part of the film process.
And it should also be noted that this wasn't the same New Line that made the Lord of the Rings. This was after the Warner Brothers purchase. So it's like, had it been the same New Line, it probably would have been 2 films. But now New Line had to answer to Warner Brothers, and that's where I think the make this a trilogy mandate came from.
Yeah.
But that's like a discussion for a week or 2 from now.
Yes.
Listen, we did have that great fight, and this is the moment where, like, Anne does accept, yes, she kind of needs to stick with Kong, and it's like a funny little scene where he just sort of grabs her and tosses her on his shoulder and runs off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the moment where she's just kind of like, let's see, I can choose the raptor or the Rex that wants to eat me, or I can choose the big ape that's weird, but at least he's protecting me. So she just strolls on over by Kong, like, yeah, you go kick his ass.
Yeah. I love this moment though, because it's like the final realization where she knows that he is not a vicious creature, and she sees him for who he is, just a gentle animal that's misunderstood.
Well, and the other thing is, like, they've always done this, at least with the 76 and this one, is that they brought in this idea, and it's weird, but it's cool, that, like, when you see Kong's reaction when she walks behind him, it's almost like he's like, yeah, that's my girlfriend. She might be this big, but she's my girlfriend. You're not going to eat her. And that's basically kind of how he just sees her, as like this nice little pet that he has that he really likes because she's pretty and she dances for him and stuff. So I think it's really cool that they, again, the mannerisms of Kong is really good in here, where you're seeing his reaction to what she's doing, which I think is cool.
To rewind for a moment, I almost forgot to mention something when they were saved in the spider pit sequence. One of the ones that came to the rescue was Kyle Chandler's character, who was called out for being a coward and now seems to have apparently found his courage. And I think that was like a cool, just a humorous little moment where he gets to actually act like one of the tough guys he plays on screen. But anyway, after they get back up to Kong's lair, and we do see some skeletons of the rest of his species, but we have another beautiful moment in the film where they're sitting and they're overlooking the island, and it just looks peaceful and tranquil for a moment. Like, you almost forget that even the earthworms in this island want to eat your flesh.
Yeah, like I say, there's nothing friendly on this island except Kong. Everything else is a fucking bastard. It just wants to kill you, eat you, tear you apart.
Yeah, like, you could just set whole horror movies on this island without Kong even being a part of it.
Yeah, that's a question.
Yeah.
Would, after the success of Peter Jackson's King Kong, because at the end of the day, New Line weren't happy, or the new management in New Line at the time were not happy with the box office of King Kong 2005, because each of the Lord of the Rings films made between 900, I think the first 2 made between 8 and 900 million, then the third one, Return of the King, made over $1 billion. Peter Jackson's King Kong cost 200 and something million to make, but it still made over 500 million at the box office. And I generally feel that's still a success, but unlike the Lord of the Rings, I don't know if King Kong has, reaches a wide enough, fan base. Like us kaiju lovers will love it. General audience members might be different. Some people might be interested, some people wouldn't. But I still think that's a success. So here's my question. Because of the success of King Kong, and because of there's so many unanswered questions, like why is Kong the only one? Would you have wanted a prequel?
That, or I would have even been happy with a Son of Kong remake.
No. But so Skull Island cost 185 million to make, and it still made about the same as King Kong did.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing, like, I think the studio had unreasonable expectations because they thought that this would do the same as Lord of the Rings, but those are two different types of like plots and designs. However, in hindsight, like, I wish, even though I find some of the story in here dragging a little bit, I wish, and I know you guys probably would agree, I wish that Jackson would have did King of the Monsters. I wish he would have directed that, because that would have changed the entire dynamic of not just the story, but the characters and the depth of that film, which was sorely needed. So, and it probably would have done much better for King of the Monsters, because even though you had Doherty at the helm, it's not a name like Jackson. If you would have put Jackson, the King of the Monsters, that shit would have like really done some damage.
His name alone would have gotten more people into the theater.
Yeah.
But I still think Doherty did a great job. Like how he made, like you see, the one thing you and I've always agreed to on Anubis with King of the Monster is how accurate he got the characters, the creatures. Like he didn't just do like my biggest pet peeve with for example Transformers from 2007. Everyone was excited. I was excited. I love Transformers, the original J1 series. And Michael Bay decided, right, I'm not going to make the characters or the robots look like they do in the 80s because it would look like shit. And for today's audience, then you span many years later to Bumblebee. Now, the opening credit or scenes of Bumblebee is where they're on Cybertron. And you see Megatron, you see Optimus Prime, you see Bumblebee, you see Soundwave, you see Starscream. They look exactly like they did from the 1980s comic. So you're telling me they went from looking like they did in the comic to then going, because don't forget Bumblebee's a prequel, to looking like they did from the comics in the cartoon to then looking what they did in 2007 makes no sense, and it pissed me right off, because why didn't you just do that with the characters right from the beginning? Because it would have worked. Because everyone knows Bumblebee is one of the most highly praised or likable of the modern Transformer films. And Michael Doherty, he didn't shy away about wanting the creatures to look completely different. The only character out of Monster that looks different than what we're used to is Mothra.
Yeah.
But Mothra still worked.
And even then, she doesn't look so different that she's completely unrecognizable.
Well, she's got the same, she's got the same role, like that echo, and she's got the same, her body works, like the way the way her wings and that look. She's got the same patterns and stuff, especially in New Empire. She's got the exact same patterns on her wings that she does in like the Showa era and in the Millennium era.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and it's like kind of fun, like even how how Kong set the stage for the kaiju back in what these films could be back in the day. This Kong actually set the stage for what you can do for these creatures with CG. So in a strange way, it was kind of history repeating itself. Then X number years later, we would have Godzilla 2014 try and just build off of what this one established what you could do.
Well, I think the kaiju renaissance for me personally started with Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Because I think even though Peter Jackson's Kong did well, no one touched kaiju till when this came out in 2005, I think, I don't know what year Cloverfield come out. I'm thinking
2008, somewhere around there.
so.
Oh,
Three, four, yeah. And because that did well, but don't forget it was unique. It was a found footage film with a monster in it.
yeah.
As soon as that came out, 2 films were announced by Legendary, and they were Godzilla 2014 and Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim, I think, came out first, then Godzilla 2014. But another big success of why that worked is because Thomas Tull, who was the CEO and the owner and who's built Legendary Pictures, was a massive kaiju fan. He was a huge kaiju fan. Now, he's no longer the CEO or has any ownership of Legendary, but he's got a 20% stake still in the company, and he's still classed as a producer. And if you look at his page on Wikipedia, the last film outside of kaiju he produced, I think, was Mighty Man of Steel. After that, the only thing he's attached to is all of the Godzilla Monsterverse projects, because that's how much, even though he's not owner, he's still got a 20% share in the company, and he only works on the kaiju stuff because it's what he loves.
And the thing too, what you mentioned about them saying this film was a disappointment, that always annoys me when I hear, even though the film is technically profitable in a pretty good sense, the studio will still class it as a disappointment because it didn't make what it should have made. That would be like, you go out, do some sales, and make, I don't know, 40,000 shy of $1 million, and rather than celebrating how much money you made, you're just crying that, oh, if I only made $40,000, I'd have $1 million.
Well, back then it made 500 million. All of the Lord of the Rings made, the first 2 made between 900 and 800 million. The last one made $1 billion. Now, if you did inflation, King Kong, if it was released now, would make around 800 million. What they wanted it to make back in 2005. That means the Lord of the Rings, each one of them would have made over $1 billion.
Yeah.
But
yeah, a lot of times, like, you know, like in this case, it cost them $207 million to make it, but usually they say, like, if it makes 407, that's like breaking even. So then anything on top of that's like basically a gain. In this case, it made like 150 million above that, which it's not super great, but it's not really bad either. I mean, it still made money. You can't say it did make money, because it did.
Oh, it anything that a couple of 100 million over its budget is a success, in my opinion.
Yeah, easily.
Anyway, get to it. Like, we have the scene where Jack finally catches up with, and Kong gets attacked by, again, these nightmare fuel looking bats things. Like, nothing's friendly on this island, and I'm sorry, Jake. If it wasn't for the raptors, I think those brontosauruses would have still tried to trample them just for the laughs. Like, everything on this island wants you dead. But we get to the first scene that kind of teases how much more tragic this version of the film is going to be, where they capture Kong and they're throwing the chloroform at him, because it just, even though Kong's killing a lot of people, it shows how, even though he's this powerful, how vulnerable he also is, till they subdue him and take him back to to civilization. And we did gloss over some things, like Jack Driscoll and Ann Darrow did fall in love, and he was writing a play for her, and we see they kind of, like, because of this traumatic experience, they did drift apart and someone else got cast in the play. But while that's going on, we have Kong debuting on Broadway. And again, it just goes to the tragedy, because just his body language, the way he's chained up, it's just like heartbreaking how defeated Kong looks in this scene.
He looks depressed. And
Yep.
soon he's not depressed. Soon he's pissed off.
Yeah, so there are some again, there's a lot of nice little Easter eggs in this movie, like the one room on the Venture, you see some of the spears from the original, and when Jack is given a quarter downstairs and we see the chloroform, there's some of the gas bombs, and now we have people on stage dressed as the villagers that are very much the costumes from the original, and we have music from the original playing, which I thought was a brilliant touch. But eventually we do get to the point where Kong gets mad and breaks free. And I do love this scene because even though Jack knows he doesn't need to see me, he makes sure people get out. But when Kong does see him, it's on sight, and he just barely makes it out with his life.
This reminds me of Godzilla 1998. You know, after Madison Square Garden's blown up,
Yeah,
and the Godzilla rises out through the wreckage and sees them all standing there and sees the babies, the dead bodies of the baby Godzillas, and suddenly looks up, sees them standing there, and instantly goes for them. This reminds me of that because he knows his capture and knows his connection to Anne, that he instantly has this go for him.
Yeah, and even later we see, because when Kong gets out, okay, there's a scene in the original where Kong grabs a woman and he just carelessly tosses her when he realizes it's not Anne. I feel it's kind of overplayed into this. It's one of the criticisms I have about the movie, where once or twice it's a great horror movie, but here he's basically just just went on a little too much. But even though Jack knows he's basically signing his own death warrant, he gets in a cab and tries to lure Kong away, and he only gets saved by Anne showing up and Kong taking her. But we do get, again, some more magical moments. I love the moment of Kong playing on the ice.
Yeah.
It's something he never would have experienced on Skull Island, and you do see that wonder and amazement in him of just, what is this stuff? And just finding the snow and realizing the snow's cold. It's some good stuff. And I grew up in New Jersey, and we used to get the same Canadian cold fronts New York would get. So watching this scene, I could almost feel how bitterly cold it had to be. And it is one of those great moments where it does almost it captures the look and feels so well that you swear you could almost feel the weather. But the military shows up, and I'll let Kevin take it from here. We have the moment of Kong climbing the Empire State Building.
Yeah, well, can we go a little bit back, the bit where, Kong finally meets Anne, and that scene, the scene where you just see the streets of New York, and she's standing in the middle of the road, and you've got the smog behind her, and Kong finally meets her, and then they go to the park and they're on the ice, and the ice skating together. It's that piano melody instantly hits you in the heart.
Yeah.
And then boom, the military starts shooting with tanks. And there's one funny scene that I've got to mention. I always laugh me ass off when it happens. So Kong's running around the city with Anne, getting away from cars and gunfire, and you've got this army captain in the back of a truck basically saying, man is better than beast. We're going to take this great ape down because no great ape's going to destroy my city. The next thing you know is the truck, Kong just fucking floors it.
Yeah, that seems great.
I always chuckle when I see that.
Well, it's-
In the sergeant who's telling the army guys in the back of that, he reminds me of the guy from Full Metal Jacket, the army drill instructor.
well,
Oh yeah.
what really helps with like these parts too, like that nice moment and then the little bit of comedy. The movie gives you a little bit of a chance to breathe before it rips your heart out.
Yeah, well, that did. And then, as you say, this was set on a nighttime scene, like when he's in, it's like mid-evening when everyone went to Broadway to see him in Broadway. Now we're heading to the end of the night where it's now getting to dawn. And he escapes through climbing through the buildings, getting away from the army. And, next thing you know, like most animals, like apes, they climb great heights. So he obviously sees Empire State Building. It's the highest building in New York. So he sees it as a safe haven and takes Anne all the way to the top. And you even have that beautiful moment, like you say, where they're sitting there taking in the sunrise. And she's like with Kong, there's the connect, and there's like this moment with them. And then you hear all of a sudden this engine noises in the background. And as you look in the distance, you see the planes coming towards the Empire State Building. Kong immediately knows it's a threat because it's similar to the scene on Skull Island where he was at the end of his cave on the top of the hilltop, mountaintop, and you had them bat-like creatures that went after Anne and he had to fight them off.
Nice touch. Similar lighting in both scenes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Kong then takes on the planes and the fire and gunfire. He's able to kind of jump around the building and kind of evade them for a while. But there is that one shot where you see this look in his eye where one of them kind of snipes him in the side. And for the first time in the film, you see fear in his eyes. You see pain.
Yeah.
And as soon as I seen that, I was like, I know what's coming. And then he's kind of sniped in the side, and he manages at one point, one gets that crow, he grabs it by the wing and he swings it around and he throws it.
Yeah, the whole, when I saw that, like the whole theater erupted in applause.
Yeah, same here. But then it went silent a few minutes later, and all I could hear was sniffling, like crying. Because the next scene is, because he's been sniped in the side, he's injured, so obviously he's hurt. And the planes continue to circle him. Anne starts climbing up to the top. He starts pounding his chest. She's waving to the planes, stop. To no avail. They start hitting him with gunfire at the top of the Empire State Building. And this is where that music hits. He slowly takes Anne, and his body starts to get weaker and weaker till the point he slumps on the top of the building. And this is another thing that pissed me off. There was a bit where he's looking at Anne and he's got his hand out and his finger out like that, and she's holding on. And you hear the plane, and he's getting shot in the back. And I was like, and you're seeing the pain in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the moment where he slowly starts, he starts to slowly lose consciousness. Like his body's getting weaker to the point where he looks at Anne looks back at him, and he's gone. He fades away. And then you have that scene that I said before that I absolutely hate, where suddenly his head falls back, Anne has to leave go, and he tilts and falls back. And then the next scene is you just see his body falling through the air till it hits the ground. And I remember when that happened, there was not a single sound in the theater. It went completely dead.
The only sound I heard was like literally someone dropping their drink.
And I remember when it cuts to the scene where you've got the army guys taking photos and bragging that they've took Kong down. I even heard people shout, "You fucking assholes." There were people literally angry and irate that he was dead, but anybody that went into this film knows it has a tragic ending. But Peter Jackson brought the emotions he brought every emotion he could to this film. Fear, anger, beauty, sadness. He brought it all to this one particular film. And then you get to Carl Denham, who says the famous line, "It wasn't the planes that killed the beast, but beauty." That's what the saying.
The guy says the planes got him. He's like, no, it wasn't the planes. It was beauty killed the beast.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that point in a minute. He had always envisioned Fay Ray doing that scene, and like he kept asking her and saying no, and in my mind she always was gonna say yes, but she didn't just want to give it to him. And like the very last time they talked, he brought it up again, and she goes, "Well, never say never." And while they were making the film and before they were getting ready to film that scene, that's when they got the word that sadly she had passed away.
Yeah. Fairy. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Is that's why they had to change it to Jack Black's character, because the original idea was to bring in Fay Ray, who played the original Anne, and have her see the line right at the end of the film. But like you mentioned, she sadly, after contemplating doing it, sadly passed away. I know this sounds stupid, but even though she's technically not part of the Hollywood version, they could have easily brought in Linda Miller as well.
Yeah.
Linda Miller would have been brilliant just to stand there and say that line, because she is technically connected to the world of King Kong, even though it's the Toho version. She's technically still like one of Kong's, female companions.
And even if Fay Ray decided ultimately she wasn't going to do the part, or she just felt too frail to do the filming, it's also just a shame that she didn't live long enough to at least see a test screening of the film. But it was just, before we get into final thoughts, like Anubis, like thoughts on this like ending sequence in Kong's death in this film.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you guys have alluded to. I mean, that's one of the reason why I don't really like Kong films, is because they always end up the same. This is why I kind of appreciate Skull Island, because it doesn't end with Kong dying. But a lot of times that's why the story's always kind of hurt. Even when I saw Godzilla '98, when they did kind of the similar thing at the end of that, I saw the same type of approach where Dean Devlin and them were using Godzilla's heartbeat dying away at the end of there, and I'm like, man, they just totally ripped off King Kong there. But but that's always been like one of the hardest things to watch. Is why I don't really watch these films that often, because I hate that heartbreak at the end, because you're made to just really root for Kong, only to watch him die in the end. You always know what the end result's going to be. So at least with the MonsterVerse, we get a chance to see Kong like kind of survive, at least for the most part, in terms of being a central character to the MonsterVerse. And so I like that.
Now, even if like they kill MonsterVerse Kong, he has a successor to take his place. So
exactly,
even if they do, it would soften the impact.
Right.
That's the difference. So between Kong and Godzilla. Godzilla is meant to be this mammoth force of nature that kind of is relentless, that can't be stopped. And there's been that many times in a Godzilla movie where when he gets killed, he always somehow comes back. Like even like obviously Godzilla 1954, it was a definitive definitive ending. He died. And then obviously you had raids again where they brought him back, but he was like, it was another Godzilla from the same species. And then just as we've seen as well with -1, even when Godzilla died, at the end, there was a reveal where basically there was a part of his DNA or skin that was started regenerating, so you know he's coming back. The problem with Kong, when he's dead, because he is just a natural entity, a natural real animal, it's hard to do a story where he would survive that much damage and come back. And obviously when they did the sequel back in the 70s where he fell off the Empire State and then he was in a coma, the sequel to that film's kind of a bit far-fetched and stupid, but I still liked it. Where I think that is the difference, and that's how you differentiate the two characters. Godzilla's this relentless, angry part of, nature, and he's a representation of nuclear power and the effects of that, where Kong is more sympathetic because he's just a creature with a heart who's just trying to be himself. And I guarantee you, the one thing I'll say, this is why they've been able and why they do use Kong more in the Monsterverse, because people can relate to him more. And I guarantee you, the day they decide to end the Monsterverse, if they do decide to end it and they kill Kong, the Monsterverse, there'll not be a dry house and a dry, eye in the house if they kill him off. Because the way they've established the new Kong, they've made people relate to him. They've made people sympathize with him. Where Godzilla for me, as much as I love Godzilla, my biggest negativity, they just make him more powerful each film. They make him more powerful than just this machine, where I want something with him to make us relate to him. And hopefully next film...
He's a cat.
I do want to, Olvin pointed this out, and I'm glad he did because I almost forgot it. But there was a game for the movie that came out that was actually a really good game where you switch between playing as Jack and Kong, and after you beat the game, you unlock an alternate ending where Jack shows up in a plane and starts shooting down the other planes, and we get an ending where Kong gets to be returned to Skull Island.
Why didn't Peter Jackson do that? Because don't forget, Guillermo del Toro has done his version of Frankenstein. This is Peter Jackson's King Kong. That could have changed the ending technically.
In his original Kong that was set to come out in the 90s, I believe that was going to be the original ending where they fight off the other military planes and get him back to the island.
Nice.
This could have been a possibility here, but I don't think it would have had the same impact had they gotten her.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of 76, so I have no problem with that actress.
I feel like the reason Kong is less powerful than Godzilla in film is because it reminds us what being human really is.
Well, he's a big ape, isn't he? He's a big primate, and us humans can relate to that. So
The final thoughts and ratings. We'll start with Anubis.
Final thoughts. Aside from some of the dragging between the early part of the film and then just some of the other stuff throughout it, overall, it's a testament to Jackson's writing ability. This is why I don't really give it too much fault for that. Special effects were great. CGI was great. The fights are great between the creatures as well as the acting. I'm not really the biggest Adrian Brody fan, but this is one of the few films where I did appreciate him more as an actor in this. Naomi Watts is an amazing actress. I love her and a lot of shit she's in. Jack Black, you could have took him or left him. I thought he did a good job in this, is mixing up his comedy with drama. The other actors, I forgot all about the guy that played Baxter from King of the Monsters, so that was cool to see him in a younger role. And he was kind of funny too, like when they were whoever like drew on his posters and made fun of him. He was
when they drew the mustaches on his poster.
Yeah.
But then he looked in the mirror and he was like,
yeah. And of course, they stuck with the ending where it's sad and those stuff, but like that. But overall, this is still like a 10 out of 10. Great fucking film. Probably the best King Kong film made.
mm.
Kevin, your final thoughts and rating.
So for me, I love the 1933 version, but like we say, that's more action and adventure. This one, it's the perfect remake, but it does everything that the original doesn't. It hits you with the feels. It brings real emotion. The cinematography is fantastic. The cast, I all think, did a great job, especially Naomi Watts. When she was first announced, I didn't know how I felt, but then after seeing her performance, nailed it. Adrian Brody, very much like Anubis. Take him or leave him, but he does a decent job. I really liked Jack Black in this. Jamie Bell was great in this. Andy Serkis did a great job with his character of Lumpy. People often complain about the length of this film, but I think actually now I've seen the extended cut. I prefer the extended cut to the original cut, because of course there's certain elements that add with that I think enhances the story, especially with Jamie Bell's character. When he finds the body of what's the character's name again? Yeah, and he takes his cap, and it just adds more impact. They make Kong stronger, better, more sympathetic, and we've often talked about how bad remakes are. Why do they do remakes? Just leave it alone. And I would often probably say this about Kong, but because it's Peter Jackson and it's a childhood passion project, he definitely brought the passion and everything to it, and it's probably one of the best remakes ever made. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's 10 out of 10.
Well, for me, to just parrot some things, like, again, not the biggest Adrian Brody fan, but I really liked him in this. Same with Jack Black. And even when I first watched it, like, I didn't know how to feel about Naomi Watts in the film, but she grew on me. This is just, again, one of the best remakes ever made. It's a beautiful example about how you can do a remake that is both true to the original, yet go in your own direction. And it's just easily a 10 out of 10 film. And yet it is a little long, and that could be a negative for some people, but just look at it this is one of those films where just go into it knowing that your afternoon is going to be watching this film, and just sit back, relax, and just enjoy the lazy afternoon watching the film. Don't worry about the time going by.
Well, it's just also with Jackson, you just know, like, if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, he's a storyteller. So some directors, you just know that they're going to spend some time giving you depth to the characters and stuff. So with that knowledge, I just go into it saying to myself, yeah, this makes sense. Like, this is what I want out of Jackson. I don't want Jackson to take shortcuts. I want him to give me the meat on the bone.
Well, that's how you can generally tell the difference with directors. Are you a film director or are you a storyteller? Steven Spielberg is a storyteller. Guillermo del Toro is a storyteller. Quentin Tarantino is a storyteller. Peter Jackson is a storyteller. Michael Bay is a filmmaker.
Exactly.
So one more thing before you wrap up. I've just thought of a funny story. So this film came out on December the 13th in the UK. And me, my mum and my dad, it's very rare we'll go to the theatres together. But because I'm a big kaiju fan. My mom's a kaiju fan. My dad likes King Kong. He doesn't like a lot of kaiju film. Like, he likes the odd Godzilla film. Like, his favorite actually is Godzilla 2014. Loves it. Could watch it 20,000 times. And I remember we were getting with tickets to go see this at the big Metroplex cinema, and my dad was asking me, who's in the movie? And I told him who was in the film. And then I said Naomi, and he went, Naomi Campbell. I didn't know she was an actress now. Imagine Naomi Campbell in this film. And that's one of the funniest things with me and my dad. He'll always go, so is Naomi Campbell in King Kong on a catwalk? Because you can imagine when she's tied up, posing, and putting like all the facial expressions. So it always makes us laugh.
Okay, like up and coming projects. Like Kevin, what's up?
Who do you want to go first?
Yeah, we'll let Anubis go first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tomorrow, 3:00 Eastern, my time, Mr. Tony and I are doing our top 10 of the year that we've seen. These are films that we had never seen before, but we really liked. And so we're going to rank our top 10s of the films that we haven't seen before. So we'll be doing a live stream of that at 3:00 Eastern. Then at 8 p.m. Eastern, the Silver Screen Savants returns. My pick this week is a 1978 film, I think, or 76. I can't remember. It's called The Sea Gypsies. So I'll be reviewing that with him for that. On the 9th, Tuesday, I'm getting together with that beautiful guy up there, Kevin Lambert, to do a next Kaiju Spotlight with Shimo from the Monsterverse. So we'll be having some fun talking about that particular kaiju. The Ghouls of the Midnight on Wednesday. Both Tony and I have our picks. So I am choosing Deathstalker from 2025 as my pick to review. And he has chosen Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is coming out this year as well. So those are going to be our two picks for that.
Is that the original one you're looking at?
No, it'd be the remake for Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yep. Then on Friday, I'm going to get together with NECA. We're going to do another Cultureverse for those that are interested in just, crazy stories and stuff like that in the pop culture world, if you're interested in that. Then on Saturday, I'm going to try to get together with, again, Mr. Lambert and whoever he has on his panel to talk about Middle Earth, more Peter Jackson. Can't get enough Peter Jackson. So we'll be talking about that as well. So that's pretty much what I've got on the burner right now.
As for me and the entertainment headquarters, tomorrow night we're doing our usual monthly Kaiju Connections classic Kaiju film reviews, and we're going to be doing Pulpazori. And so far, I believe it's me and Jake Hall, I think, and Mr. Jedi Granville who are doing that one. That's tomorrow. That's at 2 p.m. Pacific time, live, aka 10 p.m. UK time. Then, like you said, my good friend, we're going to be talking about Shimo. After we talk about Shimo, I'm back on the 13th of December. We're going to be talking Middle Earth. We're going to be talking about The Lord of the Rings. We're going to be talking about The Hobbit. Then after that, we're going all the way to the 17th of December, which is the Retro Classic Movie Show, where we're going to be talking about the Back to the Future trilogy. So 3 films in hopefully less than 2 hours.
I need to be watching those this week to get ready.
Yes, and then on the 19th, I think you are definitely looking forward to this one, Anthony Jordan. It is the Into the Darkness, Shining, and Doctor Sleep special.
Looking forward to Doctor Sleep more than the Shining, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
You will be surprised how much I like Doctor Sleep. I mean, I like The Shining, but I'm almost with you. Like, I really enjoy Doctor Sleep more. but I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get there.
Like, I'm even still looking forward to The Shining because, like, no bad on the people that like the movie, but I prefer the story in the book, and it's at least going to be fun to, like, point out, like, see, this is why I don't really care and why I prefer the book story. So, yeah, that is going to be a fun one.
Yes. Then, the 20th of December, we're doing another special. Because I cannot end the year without celebrating the anniversary of the Guardian of the Universe, Gamera. That's right, we're doing the Gamera anniversary special on the 20th, and that's me pretty much done up till the 23rd, where me and my good friend Mr. DJ Anubis and his lovely partner in crime, DJ Neko, will be recording my next Christmas special, which is going to be... Oh, are you joining me for that one?
You sent me the link for Edward Scissorhands. I just need to rewatch that.
All right. I didn't know if I'd worked the link. So we're going to be, as my friend Anthony Jordan has mentioned, we're going to be talking about Edward Scissorhands and Scrooged. And that's me pretty much done up to Christmas. So anyone who's watching, I don't see is there. Happy Christmas and Happy New Year.
Well, I'll talk about, before I get to my up and coming, I almost forgot to say something, but this DVD here of the first one, this is actually a special DVD for me because I got my first place of my own in spring of 2006, and the next day after moving in, not only did I go grocery shopping, but first I knew like they had movies at a CVS, which was across the street, and they had this one. So this DVD here was the very first movie I ever purchased after getting my own place. So even though I don't watch this anymore because I have two versions of the extended cut, this particular copy still holds a very special place in my heart.
Sentimental value.
Yeah, but my up and coming stuff, like the stuff on your channel, The Lord of the Rings, Doctor Sleep, and the Back to the Future. I have a up and coming review for The Return of Godzilla 1985, and I still need to get with someone, but I'm still wanting to do a live discussion of Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, which is set on Christmas Eve, so it's technically a Christmas movie. But before we sign off, some shout outs: Jedi Grand Vale, Lethal One, Jake Hall, and Tony of the Dead, and Ulvin, and anyone else. Thank you guys for watching. It's been good having you all. Thank you everyone watching after the fact. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and if it's been a while, rewatch this film. Over and out.